Hi everyone. This particular lens is one that I bought just to play with and to experiment with, without having any real inclination to keep it forever. I know it'll likely be an everyday lens for people who shoot real estate and architecture, but for me it's a strange and crazy focal length, and I just enjoyed using it on an everyday type of photo walk. This is the manual focus Samyang 10mm f2.8 lens. To save you doing the simple maths, that equates to a focal length of around 15mm on a full-frame camera. Although I initially described it as a lens to have fun with, there were times when it felt I was out exercising my mind with it. Often I would struggle to compose a picture simply because it seems to include everything nearby, whether you want it to or not. Your considered artistic choice as a photographer can feel like it comes down to choosing which side of the street you want to photograph. If one thing catches your eye, you're compelled to include everything surrounding it. Of course, it's not quite so dramatic, but being used to more regular lenses, that was my initial feeling. However, it really is an exercise of sorts. You have to visualize compositions in a very different way. I love photographing simple street scenes, and recently my favorite lens had been the Fuji 18mm f2. It seems to more easily capture a whole building than the tighter 23mm that I've used in previous years. Naturally, that depends on the building and how far back you can get on the street. But with the Samyang 10mm, you must switch from thinking about a single building being your subject to a whole row of them. The flat meadows of St. Ives were an obvious first subject for me, and you can see here I photographed them from the last days of autumn until now as these winter floods have arrived. I also took the lens to nearby Cambridge, where there are much taller buildings for it to swallow, and more interesting architecture too. Some pictures look unnatural, with the sides of buildings twisting a little into the frame. It gives an exaggerated sense of this being quite an unusual lens and focal length. However, there are a number of scenes which don't have that immediate impact, but that are equally remarkable to me, knowing how small some of the Cambridge streets are. I'm sure you could take comparable shots with a much more regular lens across wide American roads, with buildings easily isolated by road and sky. However, these buildings are harder to isolate on these much narrower English streets. As mentioned, it's a manual lens, but being so wide, it's extremely difficult not to have everything in focus. I find manual focus portrait lenses quite a challenge, but this could not have been more simple to use. Almost all of the time I set the focus to infinity, and there was nothing more needed to do. It's not a criticism of the lens to say that I definitely won't be keeping it. However, I know there will be times that I miss it. Perhaps next year, when hopefully weddings return, I'll photograph some grand interiors rather than always being on the outside of these interesting buildings. As always, thank you for letting me share these pictures with you. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them in the comments. Thanks everyone for watching, and if there's a lens or camera you think I might enjoy trying out, do let me know in the comments. Thanks again everyone. See you soon.